Between 1945 and 1962, the U.S. conducted more than 100 atmospheric nuclear tests, including those at Trinity, New Mexico, and the Nevada test site, scattering radioactive fallout across all 48 contiguous states. Fallout regulations peaked in the early 1960s with strontium-90 deposition reaching hundreds to thousands of becquerels per square meter, with measurable contamination even in remote regions. Studies like the Baby Tooth Survey revealed that levels of strontium-90 in children born in the early 1960s were about 50 times greater than pre-testing levels. This directly reflected radioactive contamination in food and milk supplies. Today, the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency and Food and Drug Administration oversee nationwide food and water safety, sampling crops, dairy products, drinking water, and imported seafood for radionuclide residues. They specifically test for cesium-137 and strontium-90. State and local health departments conduct additional screening, particularly in agriculture-heavy states or areas considered downwind of historic test sites. University and independent laboratories periodically analyze produce, grains, milk, and drinking water, especially in areas with known historical fallout or groundwater contamination around the Nevada test site. Since atmospheric testing ended in 1963, radionuclide levels in U.S. food and water have declined steadily. Today, artificial radiation exposure from historic testing averages only 0.005 millisieverts per year. This is far below natural background radiation of approximately 3 millisieverts per year. Populations near test sites, including St. George, Utah, Cedar City, Utah, and downwind communities in southern Utah and Idaho, experienced elevated rates of thyroid cancer, leukemia, lymphoma, breast cancer, melanoma, bone, brain, and gastrointestinal cancers. Among Marshall Islands residents exposed to fallout from tests at Bikini and Enuitak, statistically significant increases in thyroid cancer, leukemia, and other malignancies have been documented. For Marshall Islanders, careful dose reconstruction estimated hundreds of cancers could be directly attributed to fallout from about 20 regional tests between 1946 and 1958. Thyroid cancer rates in downwind regions rose by several-fold over background rates. Some children in affected zones received estimated thyroid doses as high as 120 to 440 rads during peak fallout events. Routine monitoring continues at slaughterhouses, dairies, and cereal and produce packers in multiple states, as well as imported goods testing labs, especially for seafood or plant products. Results show that residual cesium-137 or strontium-90 levels are typically far below safety thresholds, with public exposure from food remaining minimal. Drinking water surveillance by the EPA and state water boards includes testing groundwater and surface water in the Nevada test site region, where radionuclide concentrations in groundwater still exceed federal standards in some wells. Regular sampling of municipal water systems in downwind states continues, though most systems remain well below detectable radiation levels. Because isotopes like strontium-90 and cesium-137 have half-lives around 30 years, measurable contamination in soil and plants is expected to decline slowly over decades. Long-lived elements like plutonium-239 remain hazardous in soil and sediment for millennia. However, they are less bioavailable and pose minimal threat to modern food chains outside restricted zones. The Baby Tooth Survey, initiated in 1958 by the Greater St. Louis Citizens Committee for Nuclear Information, collected approximately 320,000 baby teeth from children born between 1946 and 1965. This groundbreaking research played a pivotal role in the Partial Test Ban Treaty of 1963, which halted atmospheric nuclear testing. In recognition of health impacts, the U.S. government enacted the Radiation Exposure Compensation Act in 1990, providing monetary compensation to affected individuals. To date, RECA has paid over $2 billion to affected individuals and families, while comprehensive monitoring continues to protect public health today.